And how do you feel about a flat tax? So everybody's paying fair, everybody.
All right, let me, there was a lot, there's a lot in there, so if I miss something, just remind me not to. The flat tax, I support a flat tax. Honestly, I think if we truly want to be fair, we should have a flat tax. Now, I'll answer the second question. Do I think that's going to happen anytime soon? I don't. I'd rather just be forthright with you. And there are a lot of members of Congress who have looked at it over the years. It's gained a lot of momentum. It does have even bipartisan support, but I just don't think that Ways and Means is going to go in that direction. I think what they're going to focus on first is trying to not take it all in one fell swoop, but do it over time. And the first component they're going to try to do is not really deal with the personal deductions, but address corporate loopholes. And then try to broaden the base a little bit and try to get more taxpayers, more rate payers, reduce some of the rates, but close some of the loopholes. And that theoretically should increase the revenue to the Treasury. I think if that can actually pass, and I think that there's a possibility that it can. The President has talked about this, members of both parties in the Senate have talked about it, and there seems to be some general consistency that could happen. I think then the next step would be to take the next chunk at the code. And I think if you continue to focus on it, there's an opportunity to get much closer to a flat tax. But I just don't think it'll happen, in the next couple of years. The health care bill. Here's where the health care bill stands. I suspect that there's a possibility that the United States Supreme Court will take up the challenges. They could take it up next year, and they could opine one way or the other before the end of the next calendar year. That will give an indication. That's one possible solution, or outcome, I should say. The other is, the President's been pretty clear, he supports the legislation. The only other way to change it would be through the electoral process. If the electoral process doesn't change the players, then you will begin to see the implementation of that piece of legislation. And there are significant challenges with the implementation. There are significant costs to that. So, to be determined. But there have been bills in the House to try to repeal it. They have passed the House, but it has not obviously passed the Senate. But even if it did, and the Senate has indicated it wouldn't, obviously the President would sign that into law. Relative to some of the tough issues and what I call the third rail issues, which is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I'll be honest with everybody. The elected officials over the years haven't been honest with the country.
You think?
Haven't been honest with the country. I think above all, America deserves to know the truth about what their elected officials are doing, how they're spending your money, how they're managing your money, how they're managing these programs. I think transparency in all of this is critical in order for all of us to make informed decisions about how we want representation at the federal level. And I personally believe that people who have different political ideology can come to the same conclusion that something has to be done only if you have the facts and the real facts. And over the last several years, we've seen from both sides, not from one party or the other, both, an approach about an election rather than a solution. And at some point, that's going to have to stop. So I feel that in the House budget proposal, we tried to address what many people would refer to as the third rail, Medicare and Medicaid. And what I'm going to continue to do over the course of the next year is spend time talking about what the nonpartisan actuaries and trustees have conveyed to me as a member of the budget. And then I'm going to try to convey to all of you what the different options are. And then what I hope the solution can be. I think that I have that responsibility. I think that at least people in New Hampshire would feel better if they at least had that, honesty about the situation. Now, we all have a First Amendment right to give our opinions, and I support that. And if someone doesn't support the budget proposal, let me know. I mean, I saw it coming in here. Let me know. That's fine. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. But what I think we all deserve is seeing solutions. I would love for people outside holding banners saying, "Give me a solution." I can take the criticism. Most members of Congress can take it. That's typically what we get. But I would love to see a country demanding solutions, because that's what you really deserve, and what you want to see is results. You don't want to see the bickering back and forth. I understand that people don't want to see that. So it is going to require ideas. And not every idea is going to be embraced by the Budget Committee or members of Congress or the public. But at least we can have a debate on ideas. And that's what my hope would be on this, on these significant and serious issues that we have. Was there another question that I didn't answer?
Just where do you stand on the defense budget? It seems like that's going to be the road to get tackling. And I absolutely, like I said, I'm wars, but unfortunately with it.
Here, we roughly spend about 4% of our GDP on defense. It's about $700 billion. In the latest continuing resolution, there was a reduction in defense. Here's my position on that. I think that you can find efficiencies in any department, including defense, without negatively affecting our troops, our willingness and ability to provide them the equipment they need. The first area, I think, is through the procurement process. We can save a lot of money. So to me, that's not necessarily, I don't look at it as cutting the budget. I look at it as eliminating the waste and abuse in the department. And they're not immune to waste. I mean, every once in a while I'm flying back and forth and I sit next to a soldier and they don't want to be named, but they say, I could save you money. And you probably hear it from your sons. So my thought would be, let's try to identify those areas where we can improve efficiency, eliminate waste. In the debt agreement, second phase of it, in the sequestration, you heard probably from the media that 50% of the cuts, if they don't come to an agreement, comes from defense. That's partially true. The cuts within defense, though, which is what the media didn't report, doesn't come from security, it comes from non-security items. So administrative, waste and abuse, procurement, that's where those reductions would come from. But the media report just gave the line defense, it didn't say non-security defense. So that's a question I've received a lot since the bill was signed into law, and I try to make sure that people are aware of that. The other thing is, if you want to read the bill and you haven't had a chance to, any and all of our bills are posted on the House Rules Committee website. I assume it's, is it house.rules.gov? If someone can check, is it rules?
Rules.house.gov.
Rules.house.gov. All of our bills are posted there. You can take a look at it. This one is the Budget Control Act of 2011. You can go through, and you probably need a cup of coffee because it's about 76 pages. A lot of it is legalese. We have tried to condense it into at least components of the budget. If you want the components of the law, if you want that, we can email it to you so you can take a look at it.
Thank you, Congressman. Next question from Donald Califrath regarding foreign aid.
Foreign aid, where does that originate? Foreign aid, where does that originate?
Well, any appropriation starts in the Budget Committee, where what we are responsible for is setting top-line numbers as to what each committee of jurisdiction can spend. And once we detail that and get it scored by the Congressional Budget Office, so we have a nonpartisan opinion as to what the cost of the budget proposal would be. It then goes to the House, it passes the House, and then the the different components of the budget go to their respective committees of jurisdiction for deciding which line item, how much goes into which line item.
Who decides, who gets what?
Members on the committee.
Okay, now, I might be wrong on my facts. There are 185 different countries in the UN. We give foreign aid to 158. Does that make sense when we're hurting so badly
No.
in this country?
No, I'll tell you why it doesn't make sense. Because we're borrowing that money to then give it to them and we're paying interest on it. It doesn't make sense at all. No, it
Okay,
doesn't. And quite frankly, I mean, we are going through the process of revisiting our foreign aid expenditures. Expected, it's not going to be eliminated. It will be reduced. But I would envision, and I would hope that we could say to those countries, if you need that help, go borrow it yourself.
Why can't we just cut it 50%, right across the board?
How about
I'm not sure that actually we have the votes in the House and the Senate to do that, but I'm willing to go to the committee and talk to them about it and see if we can.
Thank you. One more question. Congressman from Florida, I believe his name is Connie Mack.
Yeah.
He's got a proposal called a penny tax or the penny plan.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that? One penny on every dollar.
Yeah.
That's not much, but in 6 years we're home.
So I have had more questions on the penny plan in the last week than I think any other specific question. And I'm not sure how this has gotten so much attention in the country. Connie Mack's a congressman from Florida. He has come up with a very fairly simple proposal. He just introduced it within the last couple of months. It is free spending at current levels and reduce it by 1% a year, I think for 6 years, and he is saying that that would balance the budget. So I asked him on the floor of the House last week before I came back to explain the bill a little bit in further detail. He did. It has not been scored by CBO. It does need to be scored by the CBO to verify the facts that he is putting forward, the opinion that he has. It already does have about 40 to 50 co-sponsors. It has bipartisan support in the House. He has asked me to consider it. I've told him that I will consider it, but I want to see the CBO score first. Now, it sounds simple. Just cut 1% a year. What I will tell you is this, that the budget is divided into essentially two components, and you hear these terms, discretionary and mandatory. They're not my terms, I wouldn't utilize it, they're DC terms. Discretionary is essentially the agencies and what we have to reappropriate each and every year. And that's roughly $1.1 trillion. And then the mandatory, anything codified in law, which is on autopilot, those expenditures are on autopilot, are Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and unemployment benefits. That's about 52% of the budget. That's the remaining 3.7 trillion that we're spending. So what he's saying is apply that 1% cut to the entire budget. Now, in order to do that, you still have to reform or change in law anything in the mandatory. So his proposal is a good first step, but I will tell you it's going to take a lot of work in committee, because in order to get to that 1% cut, 1% of Medicaid or Medicare is very, very different than 1% of transportation, just because of the sizes of the budgets and the unfunded liabilities on the mandatory side. Now, I'm just letting you know it's a little more complicated than just saying